George Barta is the CTO at CoreUs. He's a mentor of mine and has a long history of shipping things in days, not months. In this pod, we discuss his learnings with a Foosball app, how to build simple systems, and knowing when to quit. Okay, well, on that note, what are you up to?
All right. Well, so I'm currently I am Chief Technology Officer at CoreUs, and I do not everything, a lot of stuff technical. So I do team lead, architecture, design. They're embedded with the team doing implementation and team management and some a little bit of business management. But fortunately, my business partners take care of most of the other stuff. So yeah, for me, technical is the direction, and we kind of adjust as needed. So right now, I'm really deep into code because that's kind of what's needed. We just need to deliver really well for the customer that we have, and with the spare time, just try and make the most that we can out of the week or two of in between paid gigs to actually build product and do stuff. So that's kind of where I feel like I can provide the most positive value.
Okay. So heavy on the technical side, providing architecture guidance, but also getting your hands pretty dirty in the code, writing code. Yep. And when you write code, are you going in and fixing little bugs here and there, or is it do you go off for a week and come back with some massive feature that turns the app on its side?
Both, less of the first. So I don't know. I'm not very. It doesn't inspire me to go and fix little bugs here and there. My goal for the team is to not have little bugs that they ship with. So usually I force the whole team to go fix them until they get the message and they don't put them out there.
So a little bit of QA too.
Yeah, exactly. And I also don't want to. I have a couple of times, but I don't like doing that. Just forging ahead and cranking out a new feature and fixing it. But I've had to do that a couple of times, which was fine. But I don't. Usually I don't check that in. Usually it's demo code that I show the team, and then they can kind of push forward with an actual implementation in the product.
Okay. And then you mentioned, you kind of mentioned between gigs in a couple of weeks working on a new product. So it sounds like you guys have built multiple products, or is it one main thing and then one side thing? What's your... And so I guess sorry, I guess I'm also kind of getting it. I know you're building something you're excited about on the side. So maybe if you want to talk about that anymore, it's a good time to do it.
Yeah. So, we started out as a professional services company, and we have one major customer that we're building a product for. That's for the most part, they're responsible for 80 or 90% of our funding right now. So it's just the work that we're building for them. So we're pretty much solely focused on what they're doing. But the company started out with a little bit of IP from some prior work, and we've continuously been building. Mostly a couple of us that have been working extra hours here and there, or a weekend where we feel inspired to push forward. And we've taken a couple of days here and there to do hackathons on it. But we have this idea of a product that we're kind of putting out there that was inspired by one of our big projects that we've done many years ago with the previous company, which is kind of a goal and metric management system that kind of ties having an idea or a business or something, organizing it and prioritizing the things that are important, and coming up with ways to attack the problem basically, and then coming up with the metrics to measure it. And then the software kind of ties everything together. So you just get metrics in, you just get the numbers in, timesheet systems or things like that, sales and revenue, and you just get the metrics in. And then based on what you've described as your priority, as your goals, and how you plan to accomplish those, you get kind of a report card of alignment, of saying, yep, you've said that this is the most important thing to you, customer satisfaction, and you've invested X amount of money into that, and here's the satisfaction score increase that you're looking for at the end of the year. So you get to kind of see what you had planned, and then kind of see where you ended up potentially at the end of the year or something like that. So that was a really cool idea, and we realized just how needed that was. And the system that we had built was a very complicated, very specific system, but we extracted from it just the core pieces that we feel like anybody can use. It's something I use, for example, to track my fitness goals that I'm not hitting.
But now know you're not hitting them, and you know what's not working and what you need to change, right? Maybe?
yeah, I mean, for some reason it's not helping, but at least I have the have the proof. I have the history. I have something to look back on and say, look, here's what I was thinking back then, and here's where I'm at now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're
So
so we're mhm.
it's sort of like, it sounds like, I'm imagining like a dashboard, right? So I mean, the dashboard is telling you basically your overall sort of health of your project or organization. If you're depending on the size of your company, maybe it's even your whole company. And really, but the dashboard is really driven by, you would go in there, set up all of your custom KPIs, OKRs, like whatever metric measuring system you're using, you would plug into this. So you plug in your metrics, you plug in your, I don't remember how you said it, but basically the things that your business is doing that you're expecting to move those metrics, and then this just all does all the tracking for you. So at any point in time, you can go in and kind of see, okay, is this activity moving the needle the way that I thought it would?
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah.
okay?
That's the intent behind it. Of course, lately we've been trying to get the AI stuff integrated into it, so
Right.
it's now more like you can explain to it your problem statement of like, I have, you know, this business, or I have this goal and I want to reach these outcomes, and here are the things that I think are important to track, and it will actually go out there and generate all of these things for you and give you a, you know, turnkey model where you can just, all you have to do is just start keeping track of your
Mm.
metrics every day or every week to kind of see how you're progressing on it.
Have you guys thought about? I'm losing the thought now, but I was thinking you could almost give away, because you said you started out as professional services. You could almost give away this as you could almost give away a free tier of a consulting service where you go in and say, hey, here's the main value proposition that this system gives you. We will take you through the initial process of basically setting up the system and getting some additional visibility or understanding of impact. Why are you doing this project? Well, it should be for this. Is it really? So you could almost sell like a 2 to 4 week free version of like your services where you guys are using the app yourself to answer their questions, but they don't get access to the app maybe until they actually go pay for the app as a separate follow-on service.
Yeah, that's a really cool idea. Um, we have like a number of them. We're
Hmm.
like initially thinking, yeah, just open it for free and let people use it for
Sure.
just to play around with it. Like take their notes, take their Google Notebook or Apple Notes or whatever, and just copy and paste their thoughts into it. Let it generate a structured output, with appropriate metrics, and just kind of see how people use it and see if it brings them value. And then
Mm,
from that, kind of like see how people are using it and kind of like define what the product looks like out
mm,
of it is the
gotcha.
current goal. But that's the direct to consumer path. But there's like absolutely right. In fact, we've kind of thought about doing that, of taking our professional services approach, and as we scope out a gig, like use this system to actually kind of come in with a set of project tracking metrics already set to roll out of the
Right.
box.
Okay, nice.
But I really like the idea.
Cool. It's all about, like you said, it's all about getting people just using it and getting that feedback. So whatever gets you there.
Yeah. And the
Um,
last important thing about it is it's called bass, but it's spelled
okay.
BASS, like the music stuff. And everybody gets confused about that. And I think it's cool.
It is cool. It is cool. Bass guitar. You got to find the right analogy there. Like the bass keeps the rhythm going, while all the other instruments are going crazy. It's like the bass is the bass line for your business or something. There's got to be like a
You know what?
catchphrase there.
What was mind blowing for me was like, yeah, bass guitar. And it's like, oh, I play bass. Great. Awesome. Like, no, I play the big one, the big bass.
But
And,
yeah, yeah.
oh, God, there's a whole different world out there that I didn't even think about.
Yeah, upright bass, electric bass is all it's all crazy.
Yep. Yep.
Um, so maybe let's talk about, because with your professional services, I guess either way, I won't see the deck here, but I'm thinking about, you've got the main thing, you've got the side thing, and obviously the budgets for that. The way that you work on that is way different, right? So when you're bootstrapping something, a lot of people are starting out with like probably $1,000 or less that they're going to be willing to spend on some new idea or whatever it is, right? So kind of thinking about these different tiers, like some people have 1,000, all the way up to, some folks have a seed round and they're up at like 100,000 or whatever it might be, right, from their angel investors. So how do you get started with $1,000? What should you be looking at when you have a new product idea? You're a founder, you're looking for feedback from CTO type of folks. You've got $1,000 to spend. What do you do? How do you start?
Well, I think maybe the best way to answer it is kind of this. I've gone through this flow. We So I mentioned I'm part of the foosball community and I play professional football, which apparently people laugh at for some reason, but that's on them, not on me.
Yeah, screw them.
Anyway, some of the competition gets pretty high, and some of the like every state will have its state tournament, and there's big, world tournaments. There's a huge one in Louisiana. It's used to be the Independent Football Promotions (IFP), and now it's the World Foosball Tour. It was just handed off to somebody new, and the guy's awesome. He's gonna drive it up. He's gonna make something amazing from it. But they have the tournaments. It's in Lexington. There are like 400 people that show up, and then there's one in Vegas that usually like three to 400 people also show up for. And life of these tournaments kind of sucks. You go there to play foosball, right? But if you are professional, you have a couple of events that you want to play in, and that's it. But for the rest of us, we go there to play any event that we can, and they have them split out by rank, so you can play in your amateur events. There's mixed, there's random draws where you draw a random partner, or bring events. But because of the complexity of managing all of these matches, inevitably you're going to be sitting there waiting for 3 hours to be called. Sometimes you don't know when your match is going to be called because it's ready, but your partner is playing some other event, and depending on how they prioritize it, and
it's like called over a loudspeaker. Like you got to be there physically present to hear your name get called.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so we basically would be stuck in a basement of Vegas for 5 days, and it was super unpleasant. And it's like people would have to like run out and ask somebody to listen for their name while they grab a smoke or they go to the restroom, and people would get forfeited, and like it was just miserable.
Oh, geez.
So one day I remember somebody calling me and saying, "Hey, can you sign up for this notification system?" And I'm like, "What notification system?" It's like, "Oh, aren't you the guy who runs the notification system?" No. It's like, okay, well, somebody is. Don't worry, forget it. Forget I said anything. Apparently, somebody had built a little web scraper that looked for names and sent messages to a couple of people, and he had zero interest in like scaling it up or doing anything with it. He just wanted to do it for his friends, so he was really pissed when everybody like mentioned it to somebody else for some reason that it was me. But of course, I heard it and I was like, oh, this is a cool technical challenge. So I was actually at the tournament, and I installed Node and everything that I wanted on the laptop and took it to the tournament, and then I'd be playing until like midnight or 1 a.m., go back to the room and just like sit down and hack and just like code that stuff. So by the first night I had it able to send me messages, like it would scrape it when he saw my name, he would send me a message. By the second night I was able to hard code like a few names of my friends. By the third night I built a UI where I could like pull up my phone and punch in somebody else's name, and then by the time the tournament was done, it was kind of like done, like it was just sitting out there. People, I think maybe I built that after, but people could just like, I had a phone number and people could just send their name to that phone number. It would scan the list of participants and it would match it to a participant and then sign you up.
Wow.
And so the way I did that back then was, I can't even remember, because I did use one of the, you had mentioned it before, I did use one of the things that lets you run a VM in the cloud, or not in the cloud, but just a deployed system.
Oh, like a Heroku type of thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I did the math and the cost, and that just was not right for what I needed, right? It was just like, because there wasn't anything to it. Every minute it had to like reload the page, scrape it, do the thing, and say, oh, here's a new name that just popped up. Let me see if I have it in my database. Let me go ahead and send them a message. And I used Twilio for all of that stuff. That was actually pretty cool to integrate with.
Okay.
So what I ended up with was a VM running in Amazon, which costs about, I don't know.
In AWS?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that, it's actually a VM that runs a couple of Docker containers. I had built a couple of different microservices for it, and like all of that stuff costs maybe like $10 to $15 a month.
Okay.
The actual cost of sending messages was much more. So these days, like I just did my thing. So it's been running now for 6 years, and it's It runs for every single tournament that these guys run based on their software. By the way, their software is another whole thing. It's somebody cranked it out over like a weekend or something, and
Okay.
maybe more than that, and they just haven't had the money to build something better or being able to like organize anything, which is why they don't have built-in notifications, which is the way it should be done. Yeah,
Okay.
point is,
Okay.
this whole
So,
thing costs like $200 a year to run.
okay. Okay, $200 a year to run, because number one, I think one thing I'm hearing from you is like simplicity. I mean, you took the simplest approach, and actually, I was telling one of my friends that I used to think web scraping was like not real engineering. It's like web scraping, like that's for like, high school kids that know how to copy paste, not for like real engineers. I think that's getting turned on its head with the AI stuff, because I think there's going to be more and more of, all the content out there. How do we essentially scrape it all into like other processing engines that we then use to give better predictions or whatever it might be. So it's kind of funny to see web scraping sort of feels like to me it's like renewing in a lot of the tools around it and everything. Maybe that's just because I've been naive to the game this whole time, but that's most of my life too. But
Well, it's a one thought on that, the web scraping part.
mhm.
Um, People don't really think about the integration of whatever they built, right? It's not like, I mean, I know even for our stuff, it's like, oh yeah, just make sure that like other people can come in externally and integrate with it. And it's like, yeah, but that's like the, behind like quality and safety and regulations and all that stuff, like integrating with another app or allowing another developer to come in when they come back and they say we need this specific thing, it's easy to build, but
Right.
right. So you have all of this amazing like, wealth of knowledge out there with very, very poor APIs built on top of it. But
Right.
but it has to look right for the user. So everybody spends a lot of time on that. So if you can do web scraping, this is basically a user coming through looking at stuff. So web scraping is just the simplest form that you're guaranteed to have work.
Love it. Okay. Yeah, I love that. So you made it super simple. You made it with basic web scraping. Your cloud cost 10 to 15, and I know some depending on the complexity, because it sounds like you had a couple things going on. Like I know places like Heroku give you like you can pay for like $7 a month for a single instance. I don't think you can do Docker on all that. That would just be like a single process. What was the other you said? Oh, Twilio. So how many? So I mean that $200 a year. That's including the cost of Twilio.
No, that's different. So
Okay.
Twilio is roughly zero point zero 0.07 cents per message that you sent out. So at this point, it's strictly just use, right?
What is
And
that? If you're sending 100 text messages a week, what is that?
oh, that's nothing, right? So that's, I don't know. I'm bad at
Seven.
math, but do the math. It's like
What?
two
What?
bucks.
$2? Okay, sounds good to me.
Yeah, yeah, because it's 0.07 cents, right, per message.
Oh, 7 cents per message. Okay, yeah, yeah. So if you're sending 100, point zero 0.07 cents. So if you're sending 100 a
Yeah,
week, that's 7 cents per week.
yeah, that sounds
Dang.
about right.
Okay. All right. All right.
So that was the math that I did in my head too when I put this thing out. What I didn't realize is how many messages per person I'm sending during one of these tournaments because it's like for every match that they have, and then I added recalls, and then at some point in
Okay.
time, I let people monitor other people's matches so that you could put in any name, and it would like you could stock, but not stock. You could actually like put in like a master's name, and then whenever they're about to be played, which the tournament director really wants, right? They want everybody to be there when the master is playing, right? Right? To drive that whole thing, to drive the excitement, and to actually like
Mm-hmm.
get people
Mm-hmm.
inspired. There's nothing worse than like going to one of these and it's like, oh man, the two best players in the world just played, and I was like in the bathroom the whole time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you could like punch in one of their names and like see their matches, or get a notification when they're about to play. But this
Okay.
combinatorial effect like just drove the cost way up. So like the last couple of years, I spent about $1,500. No, yeah, about $1,500 a year on the messaging piece. And again,
Okay.
small
Okay.
tournaments have like about 100 people.
1,500 bucks a year on messaging, $200 a year on the cloud costs. Is that all the costs associated with this thing, or is there anything else? Automated emails or like?
No, and part of it, it's great because it has no UI, right? So this is just a service. The only interaction with the user is through texting, which is very neatly controlled, and it's very. I have heard rumors that other people have tried this before with apps, like they built apps on the phone and they tried it with
Mm,
that, and it's just the notification is not guaranteed enough, where
hmm,
people miss their matches because of it. They're really really pissed, right? It's
interesting.
yeah, nothing worse than spending I said this already, but yeah, no, it sucks when you spend so much money to go to Vegas to play something, and then all of a sudden the one event that you really were interested in, like you get forfeited out of because you missed the notification.
So that, I mean, that's also a lesson in like use an older, more robust technology rather than a bleeding edge, whiz bang, whatever, like new technology that's going to come fraught with potentially less reliability, but also a lot more complexity, by the way. I mean, I think that's one thing that a lot of founders like they really want to use the new tool, and what they just don't understand is how much complexity is in that new tool most of the time, because it's kind of under, I don't want to say underdeveloped, but it hasn't reached that maturity yet, like you said, where if a developer is going to go in there and do something, it's like they might say they have an API but it doesn't give them what they actually need, or it might say that it delivers messages but they get bugs or whatever. Like there's just a lot to be worked out, right? They're transitioning from the offshore team to the onshore team, and there's just a lot of commotion in the community.
Yeah.
So I like that simplicity, kind of old faithful technologies, especially for that V1, because you don't really know how people are going to use it. I love your example, by the way. It's like at first George is just saying, "Tell me when my match is," but when you kind of leave it just open enough, you're providing one single little capability. Give me a name, I give you notifications. That's it. All of a sudden, people are saying, "Well, let me give you the name of my friend. Let me give you the name of the grandmaster over there, because I want to know when he's going to play." So kind of leaving it just open enough allows people to kind of play around with it, and then you start to see all these other use cases you hadn't even thought of start to pop up. And of course, in the product world, sometimes those use cases are like way more valuable than the one you thought of first, and those are the ones that you're going to go pursue and try to make money on down the road.
Yep. Yeah. And I haven't taken this thing, like a couple of crazy things. I haven't really touched it. I haven't put any time into it in the last 4 years or so. It's just been sitting there like ticking. I tried going direct to consumer to try and collect money. That didn't work out too well.
Okay,
Um,
tell me about that.
well,
What didn't work out?
well, I'd be at tournaments, and people would be like, "Oh, can I sign up for that?"
You're
And
like,
I'm like, "Yeah, for
hey
sure."
bro, want to use my app? Just
Yeah.
give me a couple dollars.
Well, yeah. So it was like, it's like, what would it cost to like get on the thing? It's like, I don't know, you can get me a beer. And it's like, oh, hell yeah, dude. It's like, I'll be back with the beer. Here's my name, right? And by the time he came back with the beer, I'd have it. And then I was like, all right, there's only so much beer one can drink. So let me try and like beers, what, like $7 at these tournaments? Let me see if I can charge $5. Let me see if I ask people for money. Dude, that shut everybody down. It's like, oh yeah, no,
Mm,
okay, gotcha. It's so weird. Like I can't believe it. The exact same people that don't mind spending like $7 or $8 to get me a beer to for this
yeah.
thing, it's like all of a sudden paying $5. And it was like to me, it was like I've met a couple of people who are like, here's 20, this is worth it to me. This is so cool. Like people would
Right.
send me messages saying like, I'm hanging out by the poolside just chilling because I know that when my match is gonna be up, I'm gonna be called and I can walk in and I can actually like enjoy my time here. And it's like, thank you. It's like, okay, yeah, this is great. So anyways, the cost stuff, I realized it wasn't gonna be easy. And I did try, I did
Mm.
like build a whole infrastructure to go to PayPal. Like people could
Oh,
say,
you
yeah,
did?
sign me up for more, and yeah, integrated it with the thing. So it used to be that like you can put your name in, and then if you put somebody else's name in, then it would say, okay, but you have to go through the pay path, and then you'd go through the pay path, and you would like send the code and like completely wire it up, and then you could sign up and sign you up as a premium user and all that stuff. And I think one person ever paid, and it was just like a donation. He was just like, yeah, I don't need to watch other people. I just want to make sure that you're
I
you're
just want to
continuing to build
support
this
you.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, funny how that works, because a beer is a friendship, whereas money is a business, right?
Yeah,
So,
at that point everybody's like, oh, you're just trying to like make money off of your friends.
yeah.
So
Did
so where it
you?
ended up is the tournament like um ended up just paying me a fixed cost a year. So for the last few years they've just been
Okay.
paying me a fixed cost, which just barely covers all the cost of the stuff, which is why I haven't really done much with it.
Right, right. Okay, well that's good at least that the tournament was able to get on board with it, and because you're basically like, look, if I'm just shelling out money every year kind of for nothing. So you approach them and basically like, hey, I got to shut this down unless you guys want to keep it going.
Yep. Yeah,
And
and they
and and
were
you weren't trying to make margins on it. You just like transparently, you just said, here's what it costs to keep it running, just straight up, and they just did that with maybe a little bit on top.
yep, yeah, pretty much exactly. And on the flip side, they actually charge people. So I think they actually charge people more than what they're paying me, which is good. Like for me, it's
Okay.
like it's not, it's not a mass business, so it's not like anybody's making a killing from this thing, right? And the people
Hmm.
who are doing it for the passion. So it's like, yeah, they need to do that.
That makes sense. That makes sense. I kind of like that too. You went and found a business, so then you're able to sort of work through a business. So it's not really you asking for money. I mean, obviously you're not making a profit. Like this would be different. This is kind of like you said, more just being a good community member and leveraging like skills you have to offer to just lift up the community. But I think there's still a potential business application there because it's like, everybody hates that like the multi-level marketing schemes where it's like you're going to your friend demanding money, but working through a separate business, right? And sort of if there's a way you can provide value to the business that is then charging your friends and structure something there, that feels like it makes a
Yeah,
lot more sense.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it's so much easier. It's just so hard to like, you know, plug into a system where it's already like, people are coming in and paying the money for the tournament and the tables and like, obviously lodging and all that stuff and
Hmm.
travel. And then, you're nickel and diming them here on this part too. So I never,
Yeah.
never felt comfortable with that. So it's so much easier to just integrate with somebody and provide a service to a business that if it was, there would be opportunities here to like scale this up and actually go take it to other venues, right? The nice part about it being a web scraping thing, it's like you can literally go anywhere as long as this information is online
Hmm.
and you can provide your password and you can go out there and scan things for you and send you messages when your name pops up on certain
Hmm.
lists. So there's definitely opportunity to take it, right? And this is, as many of the business startup books that I've read, it's like this is perfect, right? It's like you have a niche where you
Right.
test out all of these ideas and grow it, and you can do it cheaply, right? For not a lot of money, and then get a system set up and get all the information in so that you can then take that exact system and move it somewhere else where it's going to be far more valuable.
Right. Right. So then what, and I don't know if we want to keep using this use case or if you have a different one in mind, but say somebody got it this far, they really were business minded, they realized, hey, I can probably do this not just for the foosball community, but maybe several other in-person gaming. I'm going to use gaming loosely here, right? Tabletop games and like in-person gaming community with tournaments, right? And then let's say they've got, a budget of 50K to 100K, right? Either they have investors or they're planning to get investors. Like, how do they look at scaling that? Like, do they just stay with these old faithful technologies? Do they look to update the technology? Do they put that money solely into marketing? Like, what do you recommend for somebody who's got a bigger budget looking to productionize this thing?
Yeah, so the scaling, you have these systems out there, right? You have Microsoft, you have Google, you have Amazon, you have so many others, smaller ones that are competing in the same market that are designed to scale, right? The whole cloud is designed exactly for that. So I think like I can fathom anyone, depending on the business case, of course, or the technical problem that they're having. But I think there are very few use cases that wouldn't say just go launch on one of these platforms. Sure, eventually, like if you do have the money and if you do have the time, they can build your own data center or something like that, or get the
Mm,
computer and start doing it. But unless you're doing like crypto mining or something ridiculous like that, then yes, then for sure you want to worry about it. But otherwise, like technical scaling, just piggyback on their solution. It works. It's great. It's cheap for
mm,
startup costs. So it's really good. Yeah, the scaling problem is like marketing. I don't know. I haven't figured that right. You
yeah,
definitely want as
sure.
many users as you possibly can. So I think I would say the biggest expenses are going to be make it look good so that people want to use it, and
Mm,
put it in the place where people are so that they know about it so that they can come in, and then make sure they bring some value, like some very clear, very specific value, right? So in this case, it's like people needed this, and they just like it was so easy to get everybody signed up once we figured out the whole cost thing. That it's really great, but people have to want it. They have to come in and say, "Hey, I heard about this thing. I need that. Can I get it?" And if it's too complicated, it's not great, right? It's nice when it's just a single thing that people want that they come to look for.
okay, cool. Okay, I hear a couple things. I think number one, you're saying like if you as far as technical scaling, stick with the cloud providers and also don't look to like revolutionize your tech stack until there's kind of like a real engineering reason to do so. So if you started out with web scraping, SMS, and a little, 2 or 3 Docker containers, keep it like that as long as you can until there's some other strain on your system, some reason not to, because you blew up to 1,000 or 100,000 users, whatever it might be. That's one thing I hear you saying. Kind of in line with that. So in our engineering world, there's the famous, I think it was Kent Beck quote, make it work, make it right, make it fast.
Hmm.
And I think you just translated that to the product side as well. Number one, just make it work. Just add value, number one. Again, web scraping, SMS, adds value, it works. There's not even a UI associated with it. It works, people are excited, people start using it. Step two, make it right. I like what you said about, what'd you say about the UI? Basically, like, make it really nice to use, like the user experience, right? Like SMS might be fine, but maybe there's a better website, maybe there's a better flow of how they sign up. Maybe in the app, maybe you build an app just for the sign up piece to make it super, super streamlined and like easy, and it like remembers their data and it like transfers their data, whatever. But maybe like the delivery mechanism is still SMS because that's what's like the most easy for people to use. Like you said, notifications don't get missed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the easy part, so to linger on this one for a bit, the easy part and the nice part, they're like, what does nice mean, right? What does easy mean?
Yeah.
For me, the ultimate measure is time. The less time they spend having to interact with your stuff, the easier it is.
The less time the user spends having to deal with your system, that's an indicator that the easier that it is.
Yeah,
Okay.
and nice too, which is weird. So
Mm,
that's where I'm at now, and I'm not sure that I'm right. And this is like I'm like out on a discovery tour of like, is that like, is there some weird magical thing where users land on a page and they're like, oh, this page makes me feel so good that I like this product, or is it really just because I know me, but again, like we went through that. It's like, I tend to dismiss emotions, right? So it's
yeah.
like I just I need to get something done, right? I'm going to the bank and I don't care how the software makes me feel. I really just want to know what my account balance is. And if I can do if I can do that in three things, then and be done, then I'm gonna be like, hey, that's cool. These guys are like, they respect my time and they respect the fact that I'm just there to find something out. Not their promotions, not their like
Hmm.
holiday sales, not their like nice pictures. And again, I don't know if it's mostly just me, but for this text messaging stuff, I was going to build a UI where people could go in and sign up and check things, and then it was like, well, I already have a medium of interaction. I need two things from them. One is, what phone number do you want messages, and who do you want me to monitor? And all I need to publish is one phone number. You send your message or your name to that phone number. If I can match it to somebody in the system, boom, I have the number and the name, and that's it. So all like I go to a tournament as a user, and I literally like the numbers, like there's even a QR code, but even that's like pointless because it's literally just a number and you text to it and you send your name.
And it's like it's like a short 6 digit number even. It's not even, or is
I
it a
wish that
full, it's a full
that
number?
cost 10 that cost 10 grand a year, so I didn't pay for that.
10 grand a year. Brother.
uh,
Brother.
no,
Okay. All
yeah,
right.
but Twilio, I mean, I'm not unhappy with, like, for my use case, it worked really well. So you can use a
Sure.
full number, and they have a limit of one message per second when you use a full number. So if you're going to message like 100 people, that's going to be at least 100 seconds of that
Okay.
number just like sending one message at a time.
Yeah.
You can spread the load over like multiple numbers, and that helps. So what I do now is like, in each number is $1. So it's like this complicated formula of like, okay, I have four numbers reserved. That allows me to send four messages a second. Yeah, for a bigger tournament, I may add another couple.
Sure. Okay. Okay. No, actually, I really like that. I really like, because I'm like, oh, build a web UI for it, and you're even kind of pushing back, like, look, if all I need is a number, the challenge is like, what data do I really, really need, bare minimum, and how do I collect that data from my users in the most least painful, intuitive way possible? And you're right. I mean, like, there's still nothing easier than pulling up my messaging app and just plugging in a phone number and starting to text. I mean, it's sort of
Mhm.
like that was the magic of AI, right? It's like it's a text-based thing. Like it's super accessible to anybody. So it's like if you could make your app or your value proposition accessible via text messages, there's just nothing better than that. Um,
Yep.
dude, I think you're obviously all good answers start with it depends. But I think that you're right though that I think a lot of time, especially in our day and age with all the social media influence, there's a pressure of like success is people spending time in your app. And we actually fought that at one of my previous gigs. There was like this admin piece of software for the back office that people were using. And at one point, the powers that be came down and said, hey, we want to increase people's time on screen. And all of us who were kind of out there in the field sort of working with the people day to day were like, why would we possibly want our users, our admin users, like they need to be out there like handling customers. There's, you know, it was a car sharing app. And so it's like, you know, you're intaking cars, you're talking with customers, you're cleaning cars. There's a lot of like physical activity on the lot every day. The less amount of time they spend looking at the app, looking for information, trying to make decisions, that's the real measure of success. But the powers that be, I think, didn't quite make that connection. So they're like, what features can we do for people to spend more time here? We're like, and we fought it. I don't know that we ever won in the end. I think they just changed priorities at some point. But it was an eye opener to me. It's like, yeah, no, like a really successful app. It's so successful you almost don't even know it's there. Like you said with that banking, you're not going to think, oh, this software made me happy, but it really is the software that's allowing you to get in and out as quick as possible. You're thinking the bank made me happy, but it's really the software, if it's done right, that allowed that to happen.
Yeah, yeah. That's the. I mean, I look at the tremendous amount of value that Google was able to bring in with no UI, right? It's like their UI is just simple, and at the time it was like Yahoo versus Google, and you go to Yahoo and it's like here's 17 advertisements, and it's like
Yeah.
sure you can get lost, like you can really and click on it and like get somewhere, but at the end of the day you're like in your mind it's like if I go there my day is ruined, like
That's
right?
right.
So
That's
it's
right.
like this other one, if I need to get something done, it's just there. There's like no distractions. I just plug it in and like lets me go to the thing. Same thing with like ChatGPT, right? I think their interface is brilliant. It's just like nothing, right?
Yeah.
It's just like you just go in and you type stuff and it gives you an answer and it doesn't distract you with like so much junk. But yeah, it's a tough thing to acknowledge that like to be successful. Well, okay, for users to like your site, application, whatever, means for them to spend no time and to never think about it.
I mean, again, it depends, right? Because I think if you have a productivity app, let's say, because
Hmm.
maybe your notification Foosball app falls under some kind of productivity or automation category. So if you're looking at that kind of an app, then yes, the less time in your app, that means the more productive that person's being. There's like this direct correlation probably to like whatever job they want done, that job is in fact getting done with the less time they spend in the app. Or at least you can measure that because you know you're serving them better if they, you know, if all they got to do is pop in and hit a button and then they leave, that means you've done 80% of the work, right? So, yeah.
I think that's a really good distinction. Yeah, there's productivity apps and then there is discovery apps, right? And in discovery apps, for sure, you want them to be able to have to go down any sort of bunny trail to be able to discover the thing that they're looking for.
Like an
Yeah.
e-commerce website or something. E-commerce website, maybe you want them on there a little bit longer. Actually, I like what you said too, discovery, because you don't want them on there looking at the same stuff all the time necessarily, because that means maybe they're looking for something that you haven't provided for them. But if they're in there looking at like multiple different styles, multiple different, you know, categories of items, if there's a lot of discovery going on, then you know you're kind of giving them, you're answering the questions they're asking. Versus if it's like always back to the shirt section and a lot of just scrolling and never any purchasing, then it's like, okay, what are we missing here?
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense.
Dude, uh, it's been like 45 minutes and we've made it through 1.5 questions.
How much time did we set up?
Well, I planned on like 1 hour, so until four
Okay,
o'clock,
okay.
which where you know whatever time it is your time, but we're 6 minutes after
Oh
the
yeah,
hour.
no worries. We can cruise.
Yeah, I mean if you're, I can probably give another 20 minutes. You know, gotta make sure the wife is good. I haven't, there's no new messages on my devices, so I think we're good so far. Um,
Excellent.
all right, let's see. So yeah, actually, still on the note of scaling. Actually, you know what? Screw that. We've talked enough about tech stuff. Let's switch over to like the non-robot side of our brains, right? What is the biggest mistake that you've made as a leader, as a CTO, or you know, leading up to being a CTO? What's the biggest mistake you've made?
It's funny. I thought of two, and well, I thought of one, and then as I started exploring it, it's like, oh, there is another bigger one right next to it. That
Oh,
one's probably
oh,
worse.
okay.
So
Intrigued.
we had this. This was my first leadership experience, and it was kind of, I don't know. It's kind of a lottery thing. I was the only like name in the hat, so I kind of got by default. Um,
That doesn't sound like
and
lottery. That sounds like there was one fish in the bottom of that barrel.
yeah, but okay. So it wasn't my first because this was my second. So in the first one, I stepped in for a team of developers, offshore developers actually,
Mm,
that ended up driving the product to be successful by some measures, by
okay.
somebody's measure,
Okay.
successful enough that then we continued on, let that team go, and we built our own teams internally. But we had four teams, and I was the technical lead for these four teams that were like building one product. And the biggest mistakes that I made there was, well, the biggest one is I took on the ownership of integration,
Okay.
which then gave
Never
them the,
integrate. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry.
well, it gave them the, like the argument that was being made over and over. It's like, look, we can write the code, just that's what we're good at. We don't know all of the pieces of the system, so yeah, let George figure all that stuff out.
Okay.
And it just became more and more of like, all of a sudden, like they weren't being scored on working stuff. They were just being scored on functionality being delivered. And it's like, look, on our branch, we can show you how we are doing this. And each team had their own branch. And it's just like, it was never compatible. So I ended up basically spending
Okay.
weekends integrating.
So you're saying your integration role became an excuse for silos of work and knowledge, and people would just kind of say, hey, my thing's done, and then without really testing it with the rest of the system and hand that all off to you, and you were kind of this, what do you call that, bottleneck of getting actually putting out working software that added business value.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gotcha.
And we tackled that problem by having them merge the rest of like, they would take turns, right? So one team would merge the master branch into their code. They would then have to demonstrate all of their stuff working with the master branch and merge it in. And then the second team would then pull that result out. And that worked, but there were so many issues that still came out of that weren't shown and didn't pop up. And it wasn't
Mm,
until the full thing was integrated and then we'd go through the manual QA or the smoke test where stuff would just like weird stuff would just come up. And I still end up spending weekends like fixing those kinds of problems because it
mm.
wasn't like you couldn't pin it on one of the teams. Like it was really, really hard. It definitely like made me think really hard about how to build software in a different way so that you don't have these weird complexity issues that show up only when like weird edge cases happen.
So I guess, okay, so you've got at least four teams that you're playing safety for, integrating all their code, trying to add business value. Your first attempt to solve it was a process-based solution, which sounds like it had some improvement, but there was still like way too many, issues for your liking in the end of the day. So what did you do after that? How did you solve it after that?
Well, the next desperate attempt was a new team made up of only the smartest people that we knew that would work independently of the other one. So we gave them a lot less to do and a lot less responsibility. They were now the other teams were kind of more off to the side. So this was getting closer to the deadline that we had to meet. So we just made the unfortunately named Team Plus Plus. That
Team plus plus, all the
yeah,
10x engineers in one kitchen. How did that
yeah.
go?
Um, it went good,
Okay.
but it was just like if there was more time, I don't know, maybe, but it was still a bad idea to begin with.
Mm,
It was kind of desperate, and there were so many outside forces, right, that we were dealing with. Eventually, the project ended up getting sidelined. The customer was like, "Yeah, this is too expensive." We realize now that the right thing to do is just buy an off-the-shelf product and deal with the limitations of that product.
Dude, were you thinking that's what you guys should have started with?
Oh
Did that
yeah,
ever
no,
cross
for
your
sure.
mind? Okay, all right, all right.
Well, yeah, no. So this is, some companies suffer from this, some don't, right? But in this case, you have somebody who believes that they can solve a very, very complex problem, right?
Mm,
And then they get really bought into it, and then you have the whole problem of like what they call the middle management problem, right? Where it's
mm,
like, you know, you're you have to have more features associated with your name than the other guy because there's four of you, or right, whatever. They had some group of product owners because this was so huge that each, yeah. Anyways, the complexity got way out of hand, and from the beginning it was like it was the same thing. It's like find the least amount of value, and they were like, well, the least amount of value is when the whole system works, because otherwise there's no point in putting it on the aircraft. And it was like, okay, but anyways, it turned out to be a nightmare.
Gotcha.
They spent a decade and a half working on this thing before they
Ugh.
made that decision. Right?
Ugh.
We were only involved in like a couple of years of that, the last few
Oh,
years.
that
But
hurts, dude. That hurts.
yeah,
So what, like, okay, so I mean, obviously, a lot of that sort of comes back on kind of your point about middle management, or I would say sort of people in the product role. It's kind of up to them to make sure that they've made some of those correct trade-offs as buy versus build, stuff like that, right? Like they need to be doing not just market research when the project starts, but every year they need to be looking at what's changed, what's new, what should we be looking to partner with, integrate with, et cetera. As a technical person, who's working with those product owner people. So part of this I'm going to say is like, what would you do differently now? Like, what do you think is within the realm of influence for a tech lead working with those folks? I mean, obviously you're focused on software, so well, I'll just leave it at that. Like,
yeah.
what do you do to try to
Well,
help that ship?
okay. So the sad part is that particular problem I haven't been able to figure out how to solve. We suffer from that right now, right? I
Hmm.
have been whining. I'll call it that. I've been whining since we started this project that we're on now, that we're working on now. It's like 3 months. We should be able to show value. We should be able to have this in the hands of users, and they should be able to say, yeah, this is actually helping my day. Thank you. Let's get more
Hmm.
of it. Instead, we've been working for 2 years to build a comprehensive system that deals with everything end to end, and we just launched it, and it's being used every day. But they're using 20% of the system that we built, right?
Hmm.
And it's hard, right? And I'm not blaming anybody. I'm not saying that anybody is wrong. This is
Sure.
how they saw the problem, and I don't know if I'm right. I don't know if that would have worked with this particular group, but they're very sure that they wouldn't accept anything less than a full functionality system.
Hmm.
So that part, okay, that's a different problem. So that's a problem that I don't know that there is a solution to, because at the end of the day, somebody has the funding and they come to you and say, what I want is A, B, C, D, E, F, G, X through Y. And then you can say, that's too much. Is there like an ABC that will suffice? And they're like, well, no, because if you don't get R, then like this doesn't work. And if you don't get right, and it's like, okay, you are providing the funding and you're asking me to build your system. So that's advice for people who want to spend money on stuff. I think that world is changing. I think literally the world's changing out, and that stuff doesn't exist nearly as much anymore because of the stuff we're in. So
I wonder. We got to find somebody who's figured I'm not going to say figured this out, but who has a success story around this, because I feel like there's a couple things it could come down to. Obviously, number one is trust. And it's I think, like you said, a lot of people will bring engineers or they'll bring a CTO in kind of with this perspective of it's my money, it's my idea. I know my industry, I'm the expert. So I kind of just expect you to build what I ask you to build. And,
mhm.
obviously people respect each other as humans, so they'll listen to ideas, but I don't feel like they're really listening to ideas sometimes. They're kind of like, let me make sure you're heard. Some of your stuff might be good. I might use it in my plan, but it's still not. So part of it's like, okay, is that just a trust problem that has to be solved? Is that going to put a big dent in that problem? But I also wonder if there's another side of it of like contracts, like, hey, we're signing up to build a certain thing. We build that, and then we sort of don't let it bleed into some kind of scope creep, or maybe part of the contract is we will get 100 users on this thing before we go do the next. So I wonder if, even as consultants or or as tech people working with non-tech people, maybe there's ways for us to kind of bake in a certain, be the bad guy, right? Like good cop, bad cop, like be the bad guy and kind of say like, hey, I'm not going to do this next thing until this happens. Because I know, because I've been around the software block, I know how this goes, and you've got a great idea, but it's still subject to the same, principles of physics that drive products in the software world. I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah, no, that's been so walking out of this project, I had strategies for some of these problems, and this was one of them, right? Was next time I walk into this, I have to build the trust. to be able to say those things, to be able to, I don't know what the right word is, but to provide enough impact or enough influence to be able to say,
Mm,
let's try this one thing first and let's see how that goes. This project, unfortunately, I didn't have that influence for a number of
sure.
reasons. But our other one, the one that we're launching, I kind of did. I was able to like remove a lot of features out of it before we put
Good.
it out there. So I was real
Good.
happy about that. But yeah, that's the thing. It's like trying to understand what about your idea is so cool that people want it, and then try and express that in as few ways as you possibly can, and then try and express that in a user interface that helps them get that point across really quickly, and then like find the least amount of code that will make that happen.
I
And
was
then from
wondering,
there,
and then from
yeah,
there,
yeah, scale up, build more, add more, refactor,
right,
rewrite,
right, forever. Uh,
as long
as
as it's
you,
profitable.
as long as it's profitable. No, actually, you bring up a good point too, because now I'm wondering about the value of non-software, the value of mockups, and the value of, like you just said, if you can take them through that process, what's the one most valuable thing? How do you make it as small as possible? I'm imagining if you could build mockups for that, and then answer the question of would people buy it like this?
Yeah.
And
See,
then how do you, right? And then how do you get them, you know, how do you get that validation of yes, people would pay something like this much money, uh, for just this little set of features, and would that be a good enough argument to take back and say, hey, look, you don't need the A to Z, you just need the A to C, and we can build that for this, and you know what I'm saying?
yeah, so I think the biggest impediment to that being a good strategy is people cannot be honest with mockups. Both
Mm,
both the people offering the mockups and the people consuming the mockups and giving you feedback. It's this idea of, hey, would you buy an ice cream if it tasted like this for this much money? And it's like, well, yeah, absolutely. And it's like, well, here's the ice cream. Will you give me that much money? It's like, well, no, I don't mean now.
right,
Once a year when my kids are around, then yes, I will. But like, and it's like, right, you miss something, right? When you don't have to actually make the choice, when you don't have to put the money up, when you don't have to provide the functionality, right? You're putting
right,
mockups out there. You can move a button from the left side to the right side with Photoshop, and it's all cool. But like when you actually have, when he has to do something, like it feels different, right? It's like I've seen that happen with us before, where it's like, oh, these kinds of buttons should be on this side, and these kinds of buttons should be on this side, and then the user comes in and it's like, that's not how my brain thinks about it, right? It's like I want to do something and I go to this place and the thing that I want to see is not there, and it's harder to quantify, right? It's because of the process that you're thinking through.
mm,
And you look great on the mockups and everybody signed off on it and everything was like fantastic, and then we actually implement it and they're like, yeah, no, that's not what, you know even to this day, there's some things, some decisions that we've made about like auto saving when we navigate away from different pages, that it's just like, well, obviously this is what you'd want, and every single time I use it, I'm so pissed at it. It's like, no, that's not what I want. It's weird how wrong I was about that.
yeah, yeah,
So it's hard. It's good. Mockups are a great tool, but it's just so hard to really understand how much value you're going to get from the actual system with the mockup. It's great. It's a necessary required tool to be able to like start thinking through it, but I don't think there's a substitute for just putting a simple thing out there that collects real data.
agreed. I guess I totally agree with all that. I think you're identifying multiple groups of, I'll call them stakeholders, because you've got sort of the developers who have to build the thing, you've got the product owners who, it's their reputation on the line, right? Everybody, I own this business, everybody knows me in my field. I don't want to put out trash because people are going to judge me on that. So that you're dealing with that. And then you're actually dealing with the end users who are going to have the final say in the end. And no matter what the developers and the product owner thinks about it, the end users don't want it to save automatically for whatever reason, right? So I think there might be. I totally hear what you're saying, and I think on the question of like for the product owner who wants to go to A to Z, what what tools and strategies can we employ, especially when they're non-technical. If this is the first product they've built, because chances are, if they've built one or two or three products before, they're going to know all this stuff already because they're going to have gone through those experiences, probably failed or at least learned a lot of things to do better. So I think it's a particular problem with people who are this is kind of their first foray into it, right? And they have all these big dreams and they don't want anybody telling them not to pursue their dream, right? So just thinking about how maybe we could use mock-ups specifically for them to be like, hey, look, the users, even of the mockups, are only saying that or I shouldn't say they're only saying, but even with just ABC, they're super excited. They're on the wait list. They're ready to play with it, even if it's not really ready to be paid for yet. They're ready to play with it, and maybe that's a way to kind of do that first build and get that first release out there. What do you think about that kind of specific? Even if it's not, even if you're going to get a bunch of negative feedback, like that's the point though. We just need to get it out to get that feedback.
Yeah. So I've seen this pop up a couple of times in my feeds now. That graph, the very tall bell curve of the first one was the programmer, where it's like the novice programmer comes in with like PHP or Node.js and they put some stuff out there and they just ship it, and then as they get really good, they start going into like the C++, the like the
Yeah.
right, and then it's like, and then there's the curve of the Jedi programmer also using just Node.js and PHP and just
Right.
that kind of stuff. And I feel like it's the same with product owners, right? It's like, at first you just don't know, so you're just like, hey, let's just get this one thing out, let's see how it goes, and it's like, great, now I know so much more and I can do so much more. But I have a feeling that, and I haven't met them yet, but I have a feeling that there's Jedi product owners out there who are just like, you know what, guys, I've done this a million times. We're going to launch a login feature that just works.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Nothing else. Hey,
Mm-hmm.
and nice, welcome to our site. Here's what you're going to get if you come back next week. That's it. And we're going to launch it and put it out there and tell everybody about it. And it's like, whoa, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's hard to get around this idea of like the minimalistic feature that brings value is so much more valuable than the best, coolest system out there that just isn't seen by anybody. And it's like, yeah, I mean, I don't have the money right now to like be funding these ideas, right? But yeah, just from the implementation side, I feel so much better when like my stuff is out there and the world's using it, even if it's the dumbest, simplest little thing. And I feel terrible having built this amazing system like the one I was telling you
Yeah.
about with the 4 teams. Man, it was a marvel of engineering for my, right. It's still the highest, the coolest thing that I've built to date, and it's gone in the trash can, right? And it's like,
Yeah.
what's the point?
So the key takeaway is when your CTO says we probably don't need that feature, listen to them.
Well, no, not necessarily. Like, listen to your marketing person first,
Okay. All right. All right.
then your CTO.
Yeah. If you have a marketing person. If you don't have a marketing person, maybe get a marketing person. Or
Honestly,
to your
maybe.
point, listen to the market. So like if you don't have any way to get actual feedback from the market, and I don't mean like, your spouse or your best friend who's like, great idea, Bob, like go do it, you can like those people are always going to be in your course supporting you and it's great. We need them, but they're not the market. You got to go find the market. You got to get that feedback. And even with real code, which is your whole point, like build feature ABC, go give that to the market somehow, some way. Like that is the most valuable time and money spend.
Yep. Yeah.
Love it. Good stuff, man. All right.
Yeah.
I should wrap up. We should wrap up.
So, sounds good. There's,
Great.
yeah, you're totally right. There's so much more to like to like dig in, but
Yeah, it's
it's
hard
hard
to
to like
stop. It's
stay.
hard to stop. I'm like, oh, I got 10 more things I want to talk about and think about, but we should wrap up. Time is gone. We can do this again though.
Yep.
Thanks again, man. Thank you so much
Yeah,
for
man.
coming on, chatting it up.
No, I think No, thank you. This is like I said, I've been spending years accumulating notes and thoughts and like here's how I'm gonna do this differently and so on. And it's like I just pull them up and I'm digging through them. I'm like, oh man, this is really cool. It'd be really nice to first have to get it out, but more importantly to get other people's notes and thoughts and stuff out there because
Yeah,
that's
right.
that's how we all learn.
For sure. And now that you said it publicly, you have to do it. No,
I will.
no, no more, no more. I'll make that fix next time, or I'll improve it next time. Now you're on record,
Uh,
so
I
you
am I
gotta you
am
gotta follow your own advice.
I am on a perpetual journey to find the laziest way to build something amazing. That's my life's purpose. So I will take anything that gets me there.
I love it. If only we could all be that way. All right. Thanks again.